I had built that store with my bare hands, shelved every aisle, stocked every rack, wiped every window with care. My late husband, Walter, and I had started it with nothing but a rusted pickup, a folding table, and the hope that people still valued honest work. We didn't have much, but we built something that mattered. We sold light bulbs that didn't flicker after a week, mops that didn't break after 2 uses, and cleaners that didn't smell like chemicals. We worked every weekend at flea markets across Tennessee, rain or shine. Walter handled the tools and I handled the customers. Eventually, we moved from that old pickup to a small roadside shop, and from there to a full 2-story store with a loyal team who called me Miss Maggie and smiled at Walter's jokes before he even told them. When Walter passed away just before our 35th anniversary, I kept the store going. It was the only thing I knew. Jason, our only son, had just come back from a failed startup attempt. He looked lost, so when he offered to help, my heart swelled. I thought, finally, someone who would carry this legacy forward. He brought in modern ideas. Online ordering, inventory systems I didn't fully understand, but I supported him. I started stepping back, first a little, then more. Eventually, I only came around for holidays and taxes. I never signed anything over. My name stayed on the documents. No one asked me to remove it. I never offered. Jason's wife, Amanda, took over inventory. She was sharp, confident, and very clear she didn't need my input. Kept quiet. I focused on my garden, on early mornings and slower days, trusting they would take care of what we'd built. That trust shattered one Tuesday morning. I walked into the store with warm banana bread wrapped in wax paper, something I did out of habit, not to earn favor. Jason and Amanda were at the back counter, whispering over invoices. I waited until Amanda turned her back and said gently, "Sweetheart, I noticed this invoice from Samuel's Supply looks like it's doubled. Might be worth checking." She didn't even glance at me. She slammed the folder shut and turned, her face tight with fury. "Oh my God," she snapped, her voice loud enough for the front cashier to hear. "You're seriously questioning our invoices now?" Jason didn't say a word. I stood there, still holding the banana bread. Amanda leaned forward, arms crossed, her tone sharp and venomous. "Do you even know what it takes to run this place now? Do you know how hard we work just to keep the lights on?" Her words came faster, louder. "This isn't a charity, Margaret. We don't need you showing up with muffins and opinions. You're not an owner anymore. You're a leech. A parasite feeding off work you don't even understand." The word leech landed like a slap. She smiled like she'd been waiting years to say it. Then came the final blow. "Go back to your little smelly kitchen and let the real people work." Someone at the counter laughed. Jason looked down. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I turned around and walked past the same shelves I once built, past the register where I used to tape lollipops for kids, past the plaques I once polished with pride. No one followed me. No one thanked me for the bread. When I stepped outside, the air felt different. Cold. Ill. Something in me shifted that day. Not loud or fast, just final. They thought I was just an old woman holding on to memories. What Amanda didn't know, what Jason never bothered to ask, was that while they ran the day-to-day, I still held the deed. I still owned the account that paid the bills. I still had the master key. I had stepped back, yes. But I had never stepped out that afternoon. I went home and opened the file cabinet tucked inside the guest room closet. The metal drawer creaked, releasing the familiar smell of lemon oil and paper ink. I reached in and pulled out the old documents. There it was. My name in bold on the account papers, tax records, the LLC documentation. Every month for the last 20 years, the bank had sent me statements. I used to glance at them quickly, trusting everything was fine. But that trust had become a blindfold. This time I looked harder. The numbers didn't just represent income and expenses anymore. They were reminders, proof that I had never stopped owning what I built. Amanda could call me a leech all she wanted, but the truth was right there in print. I was still the principal owner. I had let them run the business, yes. But they were guests in a house built with my sweat and Walter's calloused hands. I folded the papers, slid them into a fresh envelope, and placed them on my desk. Then I just stood at the window and watched the wind move through the trees. For the first time in years, I didn't feel pushed aside. Felt awake. They thought I was gone. Amanda had screamed it loud enough for the shelves to hear. But if she wanted me gone, she should have made sure I had nothing left to come back with. She forgot whose name still mattered in that building. So I didn't walk away that day because I was hurt. I walked away because I was finished being tolerated. That evening I started going through the bank records more carefully. I pulled out the folder from the hallway cabinet and sat at the kitchen table with the glasses I barely wore. At first things looked normal: supplies, payroll, utilities. Then I noticed something strange: a weekly withdrawal marked operations float, always the same amount with no matching receipt. I flipped back through earlier months. It was there too. Quiet, regular, and always just enough to be ignored. Kept digging. Vendor names popped up that I'd never seen: L/J Distribution, Bright West Marketing. Their names sounded official, but they weren't on any original supplier list. I traced their registrations: empty P.O. boxes, disconnected websites, and vague service descriptions like customer optimization. But the store barely even had a Facebook page. The deeper I looked, the colder the feeling in my chest grew. This wasn't sloppiness. This was deliberate. Someone had set up a second set of books and was funneling money through ghost vendors. And the routing numbers. They all led back to Amanda. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I didn't call Jason either. I went to the bank. Not just any bank. The one on Maple Avenue with the old green carpet and a bell above the door that jingled like a diner door. The place where Walter and I had once signed for our first truck loan. Martin, the branch manager now, greeted me like an old friend. When I showed him the documents, he leaned back in his chair, his face shifting from polite interest to concern. "This isn't just bad bookkeeping," he said. "It's layered, intentional. And if I'm right..." He tapped a few keys on his keyboard. "There's a second account. Same business name. Different in. Opened 6 months ago." He turned the screen to face me. Amanda's name was on the contact information. She had set up a shadow account. She'd been bleeding money from the business slowly, consistently, just under the radar. Likely through untracked sales or inventory padding. Jason either didn't know or didn't want to. Martin asked if I wanted to freeze the account immediately. I told him no. Not yet. If I moved too early, Amanda would hide the evidence, erase the trail, rewrite the story. I didn't want drama. I wanted documentation. I wanted truth. Unshakable, undeniable truth. I spent the next several days building my case, not in the store but at my kitchen table. I traced every strange payment. One vendor, L/J Distribution, claimed to be based in Chattanooga, but their phone number went straight to voicemail, and their listed address was a post office box. Another, Bright West Marketing, was supposedly managing the store's digital campaigns. But we barely had a working website, and Amanda had always said social media was a waste of time. These weren't real vendors. They were fronts, shells for Amanda's schemes. Every Thursday money disappeared. Always just enough to avoid red flags. Thousands of dollars, quietly filtered through shadow transactions. I printed every invoice, highlighted discrepancies, added notes, matched withdrawal patterns, and organized it all in a thick folder. By the time I was done, it was no longer suspicion. It was evidence. Then I remembered Evelyn. Years ago, she used to buy printer ink and filing cabinets from us. Always in a navy blue pantsuit with a folder tucked under her arm. She told me once she admired how cleanly I ran my business. Back then she was a junior attorney. Now she ran her own firm. I still had her card in an old Rolodex. I called her that evening. "Still keeping people out of jail?" "Yes." She laughed. "Margaret Adams. You calling me to sue your neighbor's cat?" "I'm calling," I said, "because I need to move fast. And I need someone I can trust." By the end of the week, we were sitting in her office. She flipped through every document carefully. Bank statements, ghost vendor trails, Amanda's hidden account. When she reached the notarized business documents with my name as principal owner, she smiled. "You've got them cornered," she said. "I don't want to go to court," I replied. "I just want to take back what I built." "Then here's what we do." Step 1. Evelyn filed legal paperwork through the bank's compliance office, citing identity misuse and unauthorized transactions. Martin, the branch manager, made the call himself and froze Amanda's shadow account. Step 2. I pulled every cent, $68,400, from the primary business account and moved it into a protected trust under my name. I didn't need permission. It was mine. Step 3. Evelyn sent a formal demand for an independent audit of the company. The letter was precise, sharp, and impossible to ignore. We sent it by email, registered mail, and even fax, just to make a point. Step 4. We notified the Tennessee Department of Revenue. Not to accuse anyone, just to flag some inconsistencies. That was enough. By Tuesday evening the trap was set. At 7:42 p.m. my phone rang. "Amanda." I let it ring twice before answering. "What the hell did you do?" she screamed. Her voice was cracked with panic. "The accounts are frozen. We can't pay suppliers." I sipped my tea slowly. "I'm not playing games, Amanda. I'm cleaning up." "This is illegal," she hissed. "You can't just take our money. This is our company." "No, Amanda," I said calmly. "It's my company. You borrowed it. You used it. You disrespected it. But you never owned it." She went quiet. Then came the trembling words. "Jason has poured his life into this. You can't destroy it." "I didn't destroy anything," I replied. "You did." I just pulled back the curtain. "If there's nothing behind it, that's on you." Blick. I ended the call. That night I sat with my tea, the silence around me different. Heavier but clean. Not cruel. Not bitter. Just done. I took Evelyn's letter, folded it neatly, and wrote 2 words across the front. Return claim. And with that I took back my name. My work. My dignity. By Thursday, the silence around the store was no longer just emotional. It was operational. I had always believed that when a business begins to die, it doesn't start with profits. Starts with the atmosphere. The hum of printers slows. Laughter in the break room disappears. People avoid eye contact. That's when it's already too late. And now I watched it unfold from a distance. Shell, the cashier who had once thanked me for her first job, called in sick. One of the younger stock boys texted Jason asking if he'd be paid that week. No response. Amanda's email bounced back. Disabled. The store's Instagram vanished, replaced with a broken link. Vendors started calling the bank instead of the store, suspicious and frustrated. Orders were delayed. Refunds were ignored. One woman left a Yelp review saying she'd been waiting 6 weeks for a replacement mop and was now convinced no one was even reading her emails. Boxes began piling up. Refused, returned, unopened. There was no one to sort them. Amanda had slashed part-timer hours to save money. Most had simply stopped showing up. On Monday, Jason came to my house. He stood in the driveway for a long time. Didn't knock. Just stared at the ground with his hands in his pockets. I opened the door before he could even lift his hand. "Hi," he said softly. His eyes were tired, puffy, red-rimmed, the kind I remembered from his childhood after skinned knees and hurt feelings. I stepped aside and let him in. He moved slowly, like someone walking into a chapel they no longer believed in. "Mom," he started, then paused. "We're ruined," he finally said. "Amanda's trying to talk to new suppliers, but no one will touch us. Everyone thinks we're unstable." He looked at me, searching for pity. "Why are you doing this to us? We're your family." I didn't answer right away. I walked to my writing desk, opened the drawer, and pulled out the old file folder. I handed it to him. He opened it slowly. His eyes scanned the first page. Business registration from 1991. My name in bold letters. Margaret L. Adams. Founder. Principal owner. I never changed it, I said quietly. You never asked. He stared down, speechless. You worked hard, I continued. But you worked off a foundation you didn't build. And you let Amanda tear it apart. His lips parted as if to defend her. She didn't mean. She meant every word she said to me that day. I interrupted. You both did. He looked away. We didn't think you still. That's the problem, I said. You didn't think. You assumed. He sat in silence, his hands resting on the folder. The weight of what he had lost seemed to press down on his shoulders. Not just the business, but the understanding of what it really meant to own something, not just on paper but in spirit. To protect it, nurture it, respect it. He left an hour later without taking the file. He placed it gently back on the table and walked out, shoulders sagging, hands empty. I watched him go, the sun dipping below the trees, casting long shadows across the porch. But I didn't feel cold. Felt still. Stillness, I had come to learn, isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the final quiet stand. There was a phone number in my address book I hadn't dialed in over 15 years. It sat there in faded ink beside the name Fred B. Old mule, old money. That's what Walter used to call him. Fred had owned a hardware store 3 towns over. We competed like roosters in a yard. Prices, suppliers, customer loyalty. But there had always been respect. Amanda once laughed at him, said his store smelled like mothballs and regret. She joked about his handwritten ledgers and fax machine. But Fred had survived 3 recessions, never owed a soul, and never missed payroll. So I called him. Fred Barker speaking. Came the gruff voice on the second ring. This is Margaret Adams. Was. Then a chuckle. Well, I'll be damned. I'm about to hand you the opportunity of a lifetime, I said. By Friday, we were sitting in the back booth at McCormick's Diner. Same chip table, same sour coffee. Fred looked older but not weaker. He didn't waste time with small talk. I slid the folder across the table. Full ownership documents, vendor contracts, and pre-signed transfer forms. You selling it? He asked, eyes narrowing. I am. Catch. 2, I said. First, no member of my family is to be hired, consulted, or contracted, ever. Not Jason. Not Amanda. Not even my niece if she shows up smiling. He smirked. Fair enough. Second, I said, handing him a small folded note. Change the store's tagline to this. He opened it and read aloud. Back to integrity. Fred leaned back and grinned. You always were the quiet one with the sharpest edge. No edge, I replied softly. Just standards. He nodded and shook my hand. Deal. By Tuesday, Evelyn confirmed the transfer was complete. By Wednesday, Amanda received formal notice, delivered by certified mail. I could picture it clearly. Her sitting at the kitchen table, opening the envelope with manicured nails, reading the words that ended her rule. As of this date, your rights to act in any managerial or executive capacity within /store name have been terminated. Please vacate the premises by 5 p.m. Friday. Asterisk asterisk. No revenge. No spectacle. Just law. Just truth. I didn't go there to watch the fallout. But I did return to the store that Friday, just before sunset. Fred was already there, clipboard in hand, giving instructions to a few new staff in red polos. The windows were freshly cleaned. The door had a new coat of paint. A handwritten sign read, "Closed for inventory. Reopening soon with values you'll recognize." Inside, near the registers, a new plaque was being installed. Margaret's Corner. For the woman who built this with her bare hands and her unshakable spine. I stood there speechless. Fred didn't say much, just nodded toward it. Figured customers ought to know where it all started. I blinked, swallowed, and whispered, "Thank you." He cleared his throat, eyes still on his clipboard. "Thank you for keeping the lights on. And for knowing when to pass the torch before it burned the whole place down." I left quietly, with the sun dipping low behind me. No one called my name. No one begged me to stay. And yet, for the first time in years, I felt fully seen.